Asher has a crush on my desk mate and asks me to help him chase her. He has asked me to run errands and deliver breakfast for my desk mate on her behalf. I have also covered for them when they skip classes to be in a relationship. But the school still detects their puppy love. In public. Asher pulls me into his arms and says with a slow smile, "You've got it wrong. This is my girlfriend." As a result, I take the punishment on behalf of my desk mate. That night, I burst into tears in despair. Asher casually hands me a tissue. "Haven't you liked me for a long time? Are you not happy being my nominal girlfriend?" There is a heavy downpour outside the classroom. Looking at the empty seat beside me, I know that Asher and Violet have had a fight again. During the break, Asher comes up to me. He knocks on my desk with his fingers. "Where is she?" I point with the tip of my pen on my wrong answer notebook. "She seems to have gone out." He stares at me for 2 seconds, then curls up a cool smile. "It's raining so hard outside. Did you just let her run out alone?" There is no trace of a smile in the boy's eyes. This is a sign that he is angry. I put down my pen in a bit of a panic and ask in a low voice, "Then, should I go find her now?" Asher doesn't speak. I understand his silent consent. I push aside my chair and stand up to run out. The next second, Asher grabs me, throwing an umbrella to me. He turns his head and says in a sarcastic tone, "Don't say it's my umbrella. Otherwise, she would rather get drenched to death than use it." I nod and take the umbrella and leave. Behind me come the whispers of classmates. Arya is so something. She used to go to school and come back from school with Asher and be his little follower. Now that he has a girlfriend, she is still willing to be their little follower? Don't talk nonsense if you don't know. She doesn't like Asher. Arya's father is the driver of the Z family. If it weren't for the Z family, do you think she could be in the same school as us? I open the umbrella and rush into the rain. Fortunately, no one can tell that I have liked Asher. 2. When I find Violet. She is taking shelter from the rain in the basketball gym. At the first sight of the umbrella, she recognizes it as Asher's umbrella. "Arya, let me ask you." She seems to be in a good mood and takes my arm. "Has Asher ever been so nice to other girls?" I think for a moment and shake my head. "You are the first." Violet's eyes are curved, and she looks at me with a smile and tilts her head. "You are really good at talking. Arya, is it true that people like you, people who live in a dependent situation, all know this kind of flattering words?" After saying that, she immediately stops smiling and presses her lips tightly together. "Sorry. Did I offend you?" There is obvious guilt in the girl's eyes. I look away and say as usual, "It's okay. I'm not angry." Violet smiles again and takes my hand and walks towards the entrance of the gym. "Arya, you are so nice." 3. When we reach the entrance, I subconsciously stretch out my hand to her. "Let me hold the umbrella." Violet pauses for a moment and doesn't give me the umbrella. Instead, she thinks for a few seconds and asks, "Did Asher say you could use the umbrella?" I am stunned. After a while, I say softly, "No." Violet looks at the sky outside and opens the umbrella by herself and walks into the rain. Fortunately, the rain is not too heavy. If you run back, you won't get too wet. I'm leaving first. The next class is the class of the grade director. She doesn't allow anyone to be late. I don't have much time to think and just run past Violet into the rain. I run back to the teaching building as fast as I can, but I still get quite wet. Asher is just standing downstairs, obviously waiting for Violet. He glances at me and frowns. "Don't you know how to use an umbrella?" I push aside the slightly wet hair on my face. Just as I am about to speak, the person approaching from behind speaks first. "The umbrella is with me." Violet lowers her eyes and her voice is very soft. "I didn't let her use it." "What? Asher? Is the thing you give me something that any girl can share?" Asher sneers and walks over to hold her hand. "Got it. She shouldn't use the umbrella. Okay?" Violet gave an awkward humph but still didn't break free. Arya is small and thin, but she seems to be in good health. I definitely knew that she would be fine with just a little rain, so I didn't let her use an umbrella. Asher pinched the palm of her hand and raised his eyebrow azily. You have so many reasons. I followed behind the two of them at a not too close and not too far distance. I kept praying in my heart that I wouldn't get a fever and delay my progress. After all, I can't afford the high tutoring fees of this school. As for getting caught in a rain, I have no major complaints. Compared to the drama last time, getting caught in the rain is completely insignificant. For last time Asher and Violet were in a cold war. Asher used me to anger Violet. During a long break one day, he deliberately put a box of milk on my desk. This is for you. Drink it while it's hot. I didn't move. A sense of powerlessness spread to my limbs. Violet sitting next to me was looking down at the textbook. Indifferent. Asher glanced at her subtly and then smiled at me again. Tomorrow is Saturday. You've always wanted to go bungee jumping. Shall I take you? Violet finally couldn't hold it and raised her head, staring at Asher with red eyes. Tomorrow is my birthday. You promised to accompany me. Asher sneered, his tone slow and arrogant. Didn't you plan to never talk to me again? Violet was so angry that she cried and left the classroom. Asher immediately chased after her. I quietly looked at that box of milk for a few seconds and then put it on Violet's desk. Asher forgot that I am lactose intolerant and afraid of heights. Milk and bungee jumping, both are what Violet likes. 5 before the class bell rang, Violet and I returned to our seats. Violet reached out and pushed open the window next to me. Although the rain had almost stopped, the temperature hadn't risen yet. The slightly cool breeze poured into my half uniform from the collar. The coldness doubled, and I couldn't help shivering. Violet, can you? Arya, I'm so hot. Open the window. Perhaps it was unbearable coldness. For once, I didn't obey her. I got caught in the rain just now. I'm a bit cold. Can't we not open it? No way. She pouted and shook her head seriously. Arya, you can't be so selfish. You getting caught in the rain wasn't caused by me. You can't make me wrong myself to accommodate you. Whenever I can't bear it anymore. My father's words playing numbly in my mind over and over again. Arya, do whatever Asher tells you to do. Don't make him angry. For your father's job and for you to be able to continue studying in such a good school, get out by passing the exams. Once I pass the exams and get out, I can completely get away from this suffocating place. I took back my gaze from Violet, concentrated on the book again and didn't stop her anymore. Got it. 6 Fortunately, I went to the infirmary in time to buy cold medicine. Coupled with constantly drinking hot water, I barely avoided getting a fever. But I still feel a bit dizzy and groggy. So in the physical education class in the afternoon, during the free activity time, I didn't follow behind Asher and Violet anymore to keep an eye on the dean of students who might pop up from time to time for them. The dean of students already suspects that they are having a puppy love. But most of the time when seeing the three of us together, the determined gaze becomes uncertain again. 7 I sat on the steps next to the flag-raising platform and recited words. Among the discussions of a group of people passing by, I heard my name. Isn't that Arya? Where's that grandson Asher? Why isn't he near her? The speaker was a boy from the next class. Today's physical education class. Our class and their class happened to be at the same time. I looked up and unexpectedly met Leo's gaze. He casually shifted his gaze away as if it was just a casual glance. Leo and Asher are known rivals. The boy who just spoke is one of Leo's followers. Another boy replied, I heard from people in their class that this girl has a cold. Asher is afraid that she will infect his girlfriend, so he didn't let her follow. The group of people quickly left. I lowered my head and continued to recite words. I don't know how long it took, but suddenly a shadow blocked the light in front of me. I looked up and saw a giant capybara. It was a person wearing a doll costume standing in front of me. School clubs always carry out various activities. It's not strange to see people in doll costumes on the field. Excuse me. Do you need something? I looked at the dull and calm cartoon eyes of this capybara and asked. His pair of fluffy round palms without 5 fingers clumsily held a cup of warm fruit tea and handed it to me. For me? I thought for a moment, and then suddenly realized. You are from the astronomy club, right? During the last vote for the best club, I voted for the astronomy club. This should be a random voting thank you gift. Capybara paused for a second, then nodded. He then handed the fruit tea to me again. I gave a small smile and took it with thanks. He slightly turned his body and leaned against the pillar next to me. He must have delivered too many cups of fruit tea and was a bit tired. By the way, he stopped here to rest. Coincidentally, the place where he stood was just in the wind and at the same time did not block the light. I relaxed my tense shoulders, feeling the long-lost warmth. 9 after that, when I was alone, I could always meet this capybara. He never spoke and mostly stayed quietly by my side. I think he, like me, has no friends. No one cares about our strange combination. Until that day, a group of Leo's friends passed by us. No. What's wrong with brother Leo? He always disappears suddenly recently. One of them suddenly pointed at us and laughed heartily. Quickly go find brother Leo and let him come and see this too. That capybara. His crotch is split open. I looked in the direction of his finger, and only then noticed that the seam in the middle of the legs of the doll costume had split open, exposing a piece of white plastic board. A group of boys laughed along when they heard this. Capybara has a bad temper. He walked towards them, with an air of wanting to fight. The boys over there were not afraid at all and raised their chins. Come on. Young master just wants to take off your shell and see which class you are from. Capybara stopped just like that. The air was so quiet that it was a bit awkward. Obviously, he stopped because he was afraid of being beaten by these people. To prevent him from being embarrassed any further, I walked over, held his round paw, and led him away from the scene. After walking a long way, I began to comfort him. Don't be angry. There are so many of them. It's true that one person can't beat them. You are right not to care about them. Immediately after, I seemed to hear a very soft sneer. I was stunned for a moment and looked back. What I saw was still capybara with an expression of speechlessness and half-deadness. I couldn't help laughing. I always felt that the person inside the doll costume should also have this expression at this moment. 10 Arya. A familiar voice broke this relaxed atmosphere. I looked up and met Asher's half-smiling face. What are you talking about? So happy? I unconsciously restrained my smile and returned to that rigid and numb expression. Nothing. After saying goodbye to capybara, I walked up to Asher. Do you need me to do something? He lowered his eyes and twitched his lip. Must I look for you only to ask you to do something? I looked up at him in confusion. Otherwise? I was really puzzled. Since he was with Violet, our communication has been reduced to, Violet is having her period recently. The makeup test is supervised by a PE teacher from another class who doesn't know you. You run for her instead. Keep an eye on who has been showing favor to Violet recently. The club that Violet joined has too many boys. You also join the same club as her to keep the wolves away for her. Asher was so angry that he laughed. He left without saying anything, and this anger lasted until after school in the afternoon. When Dad came to pick us up by car, Asher got in the car and closed the door. He just left a cold sentence. Today you take the bus back by yourself. Dad hesitated and looked at me. In the end, he still didn't say anything and stepped on the gas and left. 11 after that day, Asher talked less to me. He started a one-sided Cold War. On the contrary, I was happy to have some peace. Until that day after school, Asher and Violet were caught kissing outside the school by the dean. Asher reacted quickly and immediately put the baseball cap on Violet's head and pulled her away and ran. As a result, the dean didn't see the girl's face clearly, but he was already sure it was Violet. The next day was Friday. During morning self-study, The dean came to the class to arrest people. Asher. Violet. Come out with me. Violet looked confused. Asher sat in his seat and didn't move. Unhurriedly. What's the matter? The dean's pent-up anger was released at this moment. Do you really think I didn't see you after you ran away yesterday? You two are in a puppy love and still dare to be so defiant? Come out. Asher slowly stood up. There's nothing I dare not admit. It's just a disciplinary action. But you can't mistake my girlfriend for someone else. He walked over here and joked casually. You can easily damage the relationship between me and my girlfriend like this. When I met Asher's gaze, I had a faint sense of foreboding. The dean followed his words and asked, "What do you mean?" In full view of everyone, Asher stood still in front of me. Then he put his arm around my shoulder and gave the director a naughty smile in defiance. What I mean is, you've got it wrong. This is my girlfriend. The director's gaze was hesitant. Was it Arya who kissed you outside the school last night? Asher nodded. Yes. I struggled against his hand and was about to deny it. My obedience to Asher has a bottom line. I can't take the blame for something that concerns disciplinary action. Asher whispered beside me. If you admit it, at most you'll get a disciplinary action and be scolded by my mom. If you don't admit it, Nathaniel will lose his job. You choose. I stopped struggling. It seemed as if all of a sudden all my strength was drained away. The director still didn't fully believe it. He came up to me to confirm. Is it really you? The trees outside the window were swept by the sudden storm. The window that wasn't closed tightly was suddenly blown open. The strong wind and raindrops rushed into the classroom and hit my face. I raised my sleeve and wiped the warm raindrops on my face in a mess. When I looked up again, my vision was much clearer. I moved my dry lips. It's me, 12 in the corridor outside the office. There were only Asher and me. After we called our parents as the director asked. The director was hurriedly called away by another teacher. I stood by the window, silently sobbing. Asher approached and casually handed me a tissue. Why are you crying? I didn't take it. I stared blankly at the leaves outside being hit by the rain. Asher made an impatient sound. He pinched my chin and turned me around. Then he wiped my face with the tissue. Arya, haven't you liked me for a long time? Aren't you happy to be my nominal girlfriend now? I was stunned immediately. Tears were frozen in my eyes. I was so shocked that I forgot to push him away. Asher glanced at me inferently, as if he was talking about an unimportant matter. The way you look at me is the same as the way those girls look at me. You can only blame yourself for not hiding it well. The air was deadly silent. The unbearable embarrassment made me feel as if I was about to drown. Asher seemed to realize how jerk his words were. He frowned and let me go. Looking away. After a long time, I barely picked up my reason. I answered his initial question in a hoarse voice. Not happy. Because I don't like you anymore. Life is already depressing enough. Why should I still like someone who has a girlfriend and make myself so cheap? Asher's eyelashes trembled. He leaned against the wall casually, with an indifferent posture. As you wish. 13. The silence of the corridor was broken by a rapid sound of high-heeled shoes. The sound was getting closer and closer. I looked up and followed the sound. In the next second, I was slapped and turned my head aside. You little bitch. You're young but very bold. How dare you seduce my son? It was Asher's mom. I was 2 seconds late in reacting. I didn't touch my numb and stinging cheek. I slowly raised my head and met my dad's eyes, who was standing not far away. He clenched his fists tightly as if he had endured to the extreme. But he still didn't take a step forward. Isabella kept scolding. Even when the director came back, he couldn't stop her. When she raised her hand again, a strange but cold male voice stopped her. Asher, did you learn to be such a jerk from your shrewish mom? This was the first time I heard Leo's voice. He was holding a USB flash drive in his hand and his breath was a bit unsteady. It seemed that he had run over. There was a faint sarcasm in the boy's flat tone. So cowardly. You don't even dare to admit your girlfriend. Asher narrowed his eyes slightly. What's in your hand? Leo didn't even give him a glance. Evidence of your lust. 14. The scene of Asher and Violet kissing last night was just captured by the camera at the entrance of a nearby hotel. And this hotel just happens to be owned by the Leo family. After Violet was called over, she bit her lower lip and questioned Leo. Aren't you afraid that I'll call the police and accuse you of leaking privacy? Welcome to sue me at any time. The director asked the head teacher to call Asher, Violet and Leo into the office to check the video. He stayed outside, looking at me skeptically and continuing to ask, what exactly is your relationship with Asher? Are you dating both of them at the same time? As soon as Isabella heard this, she became anxious. Impossible. My son is not the kind of person who 2 times. It must be this little slut who seduced him. Dad, who had been silent from the beginning until now, finally couldn't bear it anymore and stood up at this moment. Try cursing my daughter one more time? Isabella was startled. What's your attitude? Lao Huo, don't you want to work anymore? I just won't fucking work anymore. No matter how much money is offered. I won't work anymore. No matter how cowardly I am. I can't let you bully my daughter like this. He gasped for breath and said righteously to the director, my daughter definitely did not have puppy love. The director had a headache from the noise. Rubbing his temples, he looked at me again. Arya, the teacher will ask you one more time. Are you in a relationship with Asher? It's like even God can't stand it anymore and gives another chance. This time, everyone is on my side. I looked at the director with my half-swollen face and shook my head. No, teacher. I did not have puppy love. The puddle on the windowsill reflected a rainbow halo. Only then did I realize belatedly that it was sunny. 15 soon. I returned to the classroom and continued to have classes. Violet and Asher were still left in the office to discuss disciplinary issues. This incident caused a great uproar. The class was restless, with unstoppable discussions. Does everyone know why Leo meddled in other people's business? My pen tip paused, and only then did I remember that I had forgotten to thank Leo. Someone picked up the conversation. Why? For the person he likes. Who? Violet. That boy shook his head sagely. You don't know, right? There was a period of time when Leo always loved to pass by our class. Then I saw him looking at Violet's position in our class. Several times. In my opinion, he is jealous because of love and can't bear to see Violet well. I unconsciously poked at the pen tip. I didn't quite agree with his statement. I always felt that Leo should not be the kind of petty person. During the break, Asher came back to pack up his things. He and Violet were temporarily suspended from classes. He walked up to me as if no one else was around. His gaze fixed on my side face, and his brows tightened again. I didn't expect her to do it. In that situation at that time, I couldn't speak up to stop her. Otherwise she would hit even harder. I pulled my chair to the other side and distanced myself from him. Please, get away. Before today, I never thought that I could still say the word get away. Cue Asher before graduation. The depression that had accumulated in my heart seemed to be dissipating little by little. This gradually rising good mood reached its peak when I saw the capybara at noon. I was sitting in the pavilion reciting words when he appeared holding an ice pack and ointment. He raised his little round paw and pointed at my face, telling me that this ointment is for applying on the face. I endured the stinging pain and curved my lips in a smile. Thank you. Perhaps it was because the atmosphere was too relaxed that I suddenly had the desire to make friends. Are you going to wear the doll costume all the time? Can't we be friends who can exchange names and see each other's real appearances? The capybara didn't respond. I was worried that it was because the headgear was too thick and he didn't hear. Just as I was about to repeat it louder, I saw him shake his head. He refused. He pointed at his face and then drew across. I understood immediately. Do you mean that you don't look good? He nodded. It doesn't matter. Appearance is not the criterion for making friends. I tried my best to comfort him, but he remained unmoved. He even stood far away with his hands on his head. Absurdly. I actually saw vigilance in his lifeless eyes. For fear that I would take off his headgear. Me. 16 not long after being rejected by the capybara. I was rejected by Leo again. In the physical education class in the afternoon. Our class had class with Leo's class again. I saw him sitting alone by the fountain pool with a bottle of mineral water in his hand. So I summoned up my courage and walked over. When he saw me approaching, the hand turning the water bottle paused for a moment. I put on a polite smile and said softly, "Leo. Thank you today." He lowered his eyes. And his voice wasn't as cold as it was in the morning. I was a bit embarrassed. After racking my brains to think of a way to repay him, I spoke again. Let me treat you to milk tea. And also, I am at the same table with Violet. You can ask me about all her hobbies. Although rumors are spreading in several classes that Leo is taking revenge on Violet. I didn't fully believe it and deliberately changed to a more euphemistic hint. But I didn't expect Leo's reaction to still be so strong. His wrist paused and he didn't catch the water bottle. The water bottle hit the ground and he didn't pick it up. Instead, he looked up at me with an ambiguous gaze. "What do you mean?" The overwhelming sense of oppression from the boy scared me into silence. Leo is very tall and when he stands up, he can just look down at me. "Do you think I like Violet?" I have already realized that it's a rumor. I quickly apologized. "Sorry. I misunderstood. Sorry. Really sorry." Leo's eyes were cold. Half a minute later, he shifted his gaze. He walked past me silently and left. This time I understand. He didn't act for Violet. He just simply can't stand Asher, and wants to make things difficult for him. 17 on Friday afternoon. During every break, everyone is extremely active. While I was also in a daze, I suddenly remembered that Monday is my birthday. I planned to bake small cakes on Saturday and bring them on Monday to eat with the capybara. Saying that, I trotted out of the classroom and went outside the teaching building to try to run into him by chance. Until the last break, I finally saw that he was walking towards the equipment room. When I caught up with him, he had already entered the room and was standing with his back to me. Just as I was about to call out to him, I saw the capybara doll's head being taken off. It was a tall and straight boy. Then, he turned around and our eyes met. Both of us were stunned. I had thought of many people, but I never expected it to be Leo. It was Leo who was still angry because of my wrong words in the class before last. He was the first to regain his composure, but still tightly pursed his lips and didn't speak. A group of junior high school students suddenly rushed in while cheering, "Let's play ball." Someone among them accidentally bumped into Leo. He hadn't taken off his bulky doll costume yet, and his body swayed. I subconsciously reached out and hugged the huge doll costume to barely support him. Once again, only the two of us were left in the equipment room. He looked down at me, his eyelashes quivering. The class bell suddenly rang. I came to my senses, released him, and took several steps back in succession. Class has started. I'll go back first. Then I ran back to the classroom in a panic. I need time to digest this fact. But even after school, I still remember how shocked I was when my eyes met Leo's. I was walking on the road in a daze until my wrist was grabbed by someone. Only then did I realize that I almost bumped into a pole. "What are you thinking about? You're not even looking at the road?" I don't know why Asher would appear outside the school at this time. I wordlessly broke free from his hand and walked forward on my own. Asher is wearing casual clothes. He is wearing a gray hoodie and black cargo pants. And he is extremely conspicuous among a group of students wearing school uniforms. He blocked in front of me, his expression rarely serious. "Nathaniel's resignation has nothing to do with me," I stopped and said in a calm tone. "It was my dad who resigned on his own initiative. If you are still dissatisfied with my denial this morning, you can ask the school to expel me." Asher stared at me. "You know I won't." I wanted to change direction, but he blocked me again. Asher's voice didn't show any emotion. "I broke up with Violet. My patience for him has reached its lowest point. Just as I was about to speak, I noticed his slightly nervous expression. I suddenly realized something. I couldn't help but take a step back. Asher, you better not tell me that you like me right after breaking up. I said word by word, because otherwise I will find you disgusting. Today, every word I said has been trying to challenge Asher's bottom line. The pampered young master won't allow others to trample on his dignity again and again. But he still didn't show any signs of anger. Instead, he curled his lip. I don't know. I came here now just to tell you this. Asher was about to say something else when suddenly someone covered his mouth. Then he was held by the arms by two adult men and pulled away from me. Leo gave orders unhurriedly. Send young Master Asher back safely. After saying that, he even brushed the dust off Asher's body. Asher struggled in vain and was put into the car. Only then did I see the hotel next to us. It belongs to Leo's family. No wonder he could suddenly bring people to appear. 18 Leo still hasn't changed out of his school uniform. He shifted his gaze away from me and jerked his chin forward. I'll send you home. I was a bit restrained and softly refused. Thank you. But Asher has been taken away by your people. I can go home by myself. Leo's expression remained unchanged. He just said, it's not impossible for him to jump out of the car and chase after us. Then he took a step forward first. I couldn't help curving my lips. I didn't expect that Leo, who looks unapproachable, can also joke. We walked side by side, keeping a not too close and not too far distance. It was to the extent that even the dean of students would at most just glance at us. He didn't speak, so I had to find a topic. By the way, after school at noon on Monday, come and wait for me at that small pavilion again. I'll bring you the small cake I baked myself as a thank you for helping me this morning. Leo turned his head to look at me. As soon as I looked back in confusion, he turned his head away. Okay. I'll wait for you. Weech added casually. He told me that the reason he had been wearing the doll costume was that he thought I was also influenced by Asher and hated him. I immediately clarified and denied it. After gradually getting used to getting along with him, I became more relaxed when speaking. I'm really grateful that you gave me fruit tea that day. If it were milk tea, I couldn't drink it. There should be a reason here, so that I could continue the conversation and tell him that I am lactose intolerant. But Leo naturally replied, I know. I lowered my head and looked at the asphalt road and didn't speak anymore. The atmosphere became awkward again. There were also many more questions, but I couldn't ask anymore. For example, was that cup of fruit tea really sent by the astronomy club that day? 19 When I knew that capybara was Leo, I was instead embarrassed to tell him that Monday was my birthday. But he still brought a gift. Obviously, he knew it was my birthday. What's even funnier is that he was wearing the capybara doll costume and holding a gift box with his two round paws and giving it to me. I widened my eyes and asked him, why are you still wearing this? From inside the capybara came Leo's always clear and plain voice. You should still be used to me like this. Why do you say that? He was silent for 2 seconds before answering. You often smile when you see me like this. When facing me in person, you haven't smiled. After I knew that Leo was under the capybara costume, I was shocked and puzzled. But there was no rejection at all. It was a bit like when the sea creature found that the conch girl was so beautiful. I put down the 2 small cakes. First held his big headgear and took it off for him. Looking directly into his eyes, I said seriously, but I still think you look better like this. Leo lowered his eyes and avoided my gaze, but still obediently took off the doll costume. When he lowered his head, I noticed that both of his ears were extremely red. As soon as I opened the cake box, the dean of students came to patrol. Although there was nothing between Leo and me, if we were found eating cake alone, we would still be questioned. So I picked up the cake and pulled Leo's sleeve with my other hand and quickly hid in the equipment room nearby. I locked the door from the inside. Leo slightly raised his eyebrow and didn't lower his volume at all. It's not necessary. I quickly covered his lower face and pressed him into the corner. The dean of students heard the sound and looked inside suspiciously through the window. Leo put his hand on my back, pressed me towards him, and then let go. The distance was instantly shortened. Only then did I realize that my hand was still on his face and quickly moved it away. Only Leo could see a little of the situation outside the window from this position. I asked him in a whisper, "Has he left?" Leo shook his head. When he shook his head, his cheek accidentally rubbed against the cake in my other hand. I pointed it out to him and mouthed, "You got cream on your face." Leo wiped it several times, but didn't wipe it in the right place. I had to raise my hand and wipe it off for him. Leo's gaze was always wandering on my face. Unconsciously, the air became warmer and I felt a bit stuffy. Corner of the equipment room on that day. I heard the irregular heartbeat of a boy. 20 Asher and Violet were allowed to return to school soon. I still don't communicate much with Leo, but Asher still sensed something. On Saturday, I was at home researching a new cake when Asher called with a different number. "Arya, come down. I'm downstairs at your house." I was startled and immediately covered the receiver and went back to my room. "Are you crazy? If you keep pestering me, I'll call the police." Asher chuckled. "You report it. Before the police come, I will shout so that the whole building knows your name." I was so angry that I clenched my phone. But I still had to give in to such rogue behavior. The first thing I did when I went downstairs after changing my clothes was to slap Asher. "Asher, what's wrong with you?" He didn't care at all. He just looked at me with a contemptuous smile. "I just want to know why you don't like me anymore in such a short time." Then he seemed to think of something. His smile slightly diminished and he asked, "Because of Leo?" "I find it absurd." "No. Because I found that you are not worthy of my love. I even regret having liked you now." Asher narrowed his eyes and smiled. "Why are you in such a hurry to explain as soon as Leo is mentioned? With people like Asher, it's impossible to reason." I turned and left. He grabbed me. "What on earth do you want?" I lifted my foot to kick him, but he remained unmoved. I was so angry that I wanted to cry. I still held back with all my might. "Asher, do you hate me so much now?" I didn't answer. Asher's voice was a bit hoarse. "Tomorrow. Arya, come to the court outside the school tomorrow to watch my game for the last time. I will never pester you again. Okay?" 21 I guessed that it wouldn't be just a simple game. So when I saw Leo dribbling board lie on the basketball court, I wasn't too surprised. "Who brought this girl?" I heard someone in the crowd ask. "She came here specifically to watch Asher's game. Didn't you see that she brought water for Asher?" Leo quietly looked at me for a few seconds. Just as I was about to greet him, he turned his back. As if we were strangers. An indescribable sense of loss spread faintly. Asher walked up to me and bent down to be at eye level with me. He smiled mischievously. "Arya, watch carefully. Watch how I beat your Leo. Don't cheer for him. Don't forget. You are here to watch me." I didn't speak. My gaze was cold. At this moment, I really want to splash water on his face. There were constant cheers on the court. I'm not kidding. "Asher, are you going to play or not? Can you stop being so lovesick? Can you play first?" I tightened the water bottle and explained aloud. "I don't." "Shh." Asher slowly stopped me. "Don't explain. Arya, you have to listen to me today. Otherwise, our agreement will be invalid." I unconsciously bit my lower lip hard, wishing I could pierce a hole in him. Asher had better keep his promise. The two sides played fiercely from the very beginning, especially Asher and Leo. The ball was mainly in their hands. There were constant frictions between the two, and the referee frequently blew the whistle and gave out cards. At the end of the first half, Asher's team was 2 points ahead of Leo's. Asher smugly curled his lips. When Leo was about to pick up the water bottle on the steps, he kicked it away. Then he apologized with a smile. "Sorry. It wasn't on purpose." The atmosphere immediately became tense. The people on Leo's side couldn't sit still. They walked towards Asher and were about to start a fight. But Leo raised his hand and stopped them. Asher obviously deliberately provoked them to start a fight. There are surveillance cameras all around here. As long as he doesn't fight back, he can send them in and detain them for a few days. They glared at Asher resentfully and then handed their half-full water bottles to Leo one after another. Brother Leo, there's no supermarket nearby. Drink ours first. Don't be so fussy about cleanliness at this time. Aren't you thirsty? He dribbled the ball casually and refused in a low voice. No. Holding the water bottle in my hand, I endured and endured, still unable to hold back. I got up and walked towards Leo. Asher pulled me. Don't go. They all think you are my girlfriend. I stepped on Asher's foot, forcing him to let go of me. Said in a voice that everyone on the field could hear, I will no longer abide by your childish agreement. Asher, if you keep pestering me, I will call the police and accuse you of sexual harassment. It's a big deal to end in mutual destruction. After saying that, I stepped on him again before running away. It turns out that it can be so disgusting to find out that someone you once liked has gone bad. I ran to Leo and hurriedly handed him the mineral water in my hand. Here. It hasn't been drunk. He didn't take it. His eyes were grim. Is he pestering you? I nodded and said as I unscrewed the cap, but now I'm not afraid of him anymore. Concentrate on the game. I'll cheer for you. After saying that, I handed the water to him again. Here. Leo lowered his eyes and looked at the water. After a while, he raised his hand and took it. Arya. This is the first time I've heard him call my name. The boy stared at me intently. After I finished the game, I'll tell you something. I think I probably know what it is. My palms were sweating slightly, and I was at a loss. Stammered, if you lose, you can still say it. Leo is very principled. If I lose, I won't say it. He drank the water and turned around and entered the court. I blinked. But even if you don't say it, I know. 22 Asher was very aggressive in the second half and played even more fiercely. And it was only targeted at Leo. But Leo was faster and more accurate than him. Even in the end, it could be said that he was the one who dominated the whole field alone. The final score of Leo's team was double digits higher than that of Asher's team. I ran to Leo and handed him both water and tissues. Looking at him with a smile. You are so amazing. Leo, he is bad. Asher threw the ball violently on the ground with a gloomy expression. He glanced at me inferently. Smiled playfully at Leo. She is actually extremely ordinary. Is it necessary for you to compete with me so desperately? If you want her, I'll let you have her. After saying that, he threw away the ball and left. I don't care about this bastard's words. As long as he doesn't continue to harass me. It doesn't matter if I am mildly criticized. Leo has always been too lazy to bother with him. But this time he didn't tolerate Asher anymore. Leo took the basketball and mercilessly threw it at the back of his head. Said in a calm and annoying tone, I did it on purpose. Bad at it. Don't save face for yourself. Are you worthy to say the word, let? Asher's face was as dark as water. In the end, he was half dragged away by several other boys. 23 Leo confessed on the way to send me home. Arya. You know, right? Know that I like you. He had changed back into his usual clothes, and was wearing a baseball cap. When he spoke, he lowered his head so that no one could see his face. I walked beside him. After my thoughts were in a turmoil for a while, I finally calmed down. Gently said I guessed a little. But I'm sorry. I lowered my head and kicked away a stone. I don't want to fall in love early. I realize that I like him a little bit. But it's not to the extent that I would break my principles for him. After graduation, can you consider me? He asked. I was silent all the way. It was almost when I reached my home that I nodded solemnly. Leo smiled faintly. The whole person looked warmer than ever. 24 in the last half year of high school. Leo and I became even closer. After school, He would squeeze on the bus with me and see me home. During holidays, we basically spent our time in the library. He taught me physics, and I urged him to recite classical Chinese. Asher never talked to me again. He kept changing girlfriends, and became more and more promiscuous. The only surprise was that Violet took the initiative to look for Leo once. On the way after school that day, she stopped Leo and asked, "So when are you going to stop taking revenge on me, Leo?" It turned out that she had always believed the rumor that Leo had a crush on her. She pointed at me beside him and questioned Leo on the verge of crying. "You deliberately got close to her just to show me, right? I promised to be with you. Is that okay?" She thought Leo, like Asher, was playing such a childish game. Leo sneered coldly, his eyes and brows showing tiredness. "If I really liked you, I wouldn't be so cruel to you. Do you understand?" Violet was probably exposed to a normal view of love for the first time. It took her a long time to react. She ran away with an ugly expression on her face. According to Leo's character, he was too lazy to explain so much. I tilted my head and looked at him leisurely. Was it sad for me? Leo put his hands in his pockets and looked ahead. His tone was casual. "What do you mean?" Pretending as if it were real. 25 Asher was so unrestrained that the school could hardly control him. I just wanted him to endure this last period peacefully and send him away. But he still got into trouble before the college entrance examination. When we were reviewing wrong questions in the last round, a girl suddenly burst into our class with disheveled hair. The physics teacher stood on the podium and knocked on the multimedia. "Classmate, what are you doing?" She ignored him and just stared straight at Asher. "Asher, you better tell me right now who that woman you truly like is. I want to see where she is better than me and is worth you breaking up with me for her. Don't make me look for you class by class." Asher leaned against the back of the chair and looked at her. "Are you energetic? If I'm tired of it, I break up. Clinging on desperately will make you seem very cheap. Don't you know?" When he said this, there was a hint of self-mockery. The teacher lowered his voice. "Classmate, please go out. We are in class now. Go to hell with your class." The girl turned around and yelled at the teacher, then looked at Asher again. Tears streamed down her face, and the emotions in her eyes gradually became crazy. "Asher, I tell you I'm pregnant. If you dare to break up with me, I'll jump off a building. I mean what I say." The whole class was in an uproar, but Asher still had a half-dead and decadent attitude. This incident caused a big stir. This time, it was not Isabella who spoils Asher, but his father, the head of the Asher family. As soon as Asher's father came, he kicked Asher in the heart in public. Useless thing. The person, along with the table and chair, fell to the ground. Asher coughed twice and didn't get up immediately. Instead, he slowly raised his eyes and looked at me. He smiled and mouthed to me, "I'm really bad, right?" I turned my head and continued to look through my wrong question notebook. Without a single ripple in my heart. Asher's psychological distortion to this extent is caused by himself. Only he can pay for it. 26 Asher's incident fermented on the internet. Many onlookers listed each of his girlfriends and then commented on each one. Violet, as his first girlfriend, had a higher degree of discussion. Unable to bear the strange looks, she repeatedly broke down mentally in public places. Finally, she directly asked for leave and reviewed at home by herself. And Asher was even more serious. Due to public opinion, the school finally expelled him. Even the stock price of the Asher family dropped a bit. Asher's father was extremely angry and beat Asher half to death and sent him abroad. Then he brought back the illegitimate child raised outside, seemingly having the intention of changing the heir. But no matter how dramatic it was, the heat of this matter didn't last long. Soon it was suppressed by the next hot topic. 27 Before entering the examination room, seeing that I was too nervous, Leo brought up a topic to distract me. How can someone still like someone like Asher who sleeps around so much? Don't you think he's dirty? He leaned casually against a tree and said calmly, "I'm different. I'm loyal, and this is my first love." I didn't react immediately, and asked casually as if unconsciously, "Who is your first love?" Leo looked at me. "You." He is no longer the boy who blushes just because I praise him for being good-looking. In fact, he is very flirtatious inside. Now all one's true nature is revealed, completely exposed. I suppress the upturned corners of my mouth and firmly deny it. "No. Thank you. I haven't agreed yet." Before long, after this back and forth exchange, it's time to enter the examination room. Originally, I was a bit tense again, but at the moment I sat on the seat, I realized there was nothing to be afraid of. I answered the questions as usual. 3 days passed quickly. In the evening, after having a meal outside with Leo, on his way to send me home, we only occasionally talked about college entrance examination questions. Whenever he wanted to say something, I interrupted him and changed the topic. Leo sensed something and became more and more silent. When we arrived downstairs at my house, he just rubbed my head. He forced a smile and said goodbye and left. I took hold of his hand and suddenly pulled him back. When Leo was stunned, I stood on tiptoe and kissed him on the side of his face. Then I told him in a low voice, "What a coincidence. My first love is also you." The end. The end. The end. The end. The end. The end.